Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Arnis Luks here at the Freedom Forum, and I'd like to welcome Yves Potvin from Canada. Welcome, Yves.
Yeah, good morning, good evening with you.
It is evening. It's about 10:15 my time in Adelaide, but I think
Yeah, it's
it's
been a while.
yeah.
I missed you too.
It has been a while. That's right. We've gone across to our summertime, and I think you've come back from your summertime to normal time since we spoke last. So, and both of us have gone to our essentially our annual meetings. I put the heading here, Rougemont, the social doctrine of the church. But you've been there recently with the gathering, on and off with a lot of people. So, how did that turn out, Eve?
Well, it turned out very well. Uh, we had uh, we had one bishop that attended. We were expecting more, but some of them are from Africa. They have a hard time getting their visa
Hmm.
on time. But there was 11 priests, most of them from African countries, uh, and one of them was from France. A nice priest. I know I met him a couple of times,
Hmm.
and of course there was Father Henri Boulade. He's a Jesuit priest, and he goes around the world
Hmm.
uh, giving homilies or speeches
Hmm.
to the world about reality, about what's going on in the world. So he was very, very interesting. I've
Hmm.
watched him quite a few times. We had a dinner here about 3 months ago in Toronto with the Cardinal Collins,
Hmm.
and he had him to speak. And so I didn't make it, but apparently it was a good turnout.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So we had all these things going on and for 5 days, the the social credit doctrine
Hmm.
was taught to all these people that attended, and their comments was obviously enlightening.
Hmm.
They they couldn't believe half of the stuff that when we start and you tell them certain things about the banking system,
Hmm.
they have a hard time believing it. How can that be? How can the banks create money from nothing
Hmm.
or as a debt? I never
Mm.
understood that. They
I
knew
think
there's something wrong.
Yeah, when I attempt to explain what goes on, I place people in their existing circumstances, and just say, well, okay, you want to go and buy a couch or a TV or a car, and there it is. It's on the shelf. It's already made, and all you have to do is go to the salesman, agree to buy it for that price, and then you process the loan application and you fill in the paperwork, and the person who's selling you the particular item has agreed that okay, you've filled it in, it's been accepted, and the debt has been paid. But the thing is that what you've done is you've agreed that from your future income, you're actually going to take money out of circulation to repay the debt. Now, that to me is what actually does happen. It's if you've got a student loan, it's exactly the same. You accumulate the debt by going to school. If you have a home loan, it's the same. The house is already built, but you're indebted for years and years and years to come. You promise to pay something from your future earnings for something that is already created. Now, the world itself is so astronomically in debt that it's irredeemable. It can never, ever recover. It can never pay off this debt in the sense that they will be working forever and ever. Mortgages are going from, used to be, say, you'd really hammer a mortgage in maybe 10 years, and now it's gone out to 20 to 30 to 40, and some it's generational. You won't actually redeem the mortgage your whole life, and it's something you'll actually hand over to your children. So it's generational. The debt is generational, and yet the particular item that you're buying is already produced. And that to me is the most profound observation. But you've got to actually look at it. And if you don't look at it and come to grips with it, well, it is actually produced. Yes, it is. And I am agreeing to transfer my future income across to pay off this debt. That's how the system works. And then you ask, well, where did the money come from in the first place? In order to redeem that debt, where did the money come from? And the fact is that the Bank of England, and I note recently a German bank has agreed. It's fabricated, it is created out of thin air in the banking system, and it's just honoured by the banks. The government has passed laws to make it lawful, but it certainly is not ethical. And within that lawful creation of new credit, of course, is the escalating debt that's irredeemable. So in the end, the banks own everything. Now, this particular, if you like, modern phenomena is about a bit over 420 years old, 425 years old. And we need to come to grips with this is something that seriously needs to be addressed. The debts need to be redeemable. They need to be able to be cleared. And we're the most productive in the history of the world with our steam energy, our electrical energy, our nuclear energy, solar energy, industry, technology, manufacturing. I mean, it's robotics, automation, advanced control. We are there. We are able to produce so much it's not funny. You go into every shop, every department store, every supermarket, they're all full. All the car sales places are all full. They all want to sell, and the only way to sell is to borrow more money, and that money is always in the form of a debt. And we need to come to grips with that. This is something that must be addressed. Eve.
Yes, we're used to that.
Hmm, hmm,
We seem to be happy with. My grandmother always told me, "Don't ever get involved with a mortgage."
hmm,
Uh, Grandma, I want to buy a house. You know what?
hmm,
Yeah, but you better not get involved with a mortgage.
hmm,
Anyway, so that she believed that in those days, and I should have listened,
hmm,
but I've been involved with mortgages all my life.
hmm,
So the debt system, we're so used to accepting that,
hmm,
and now my wife and I were debating whether we should stay where we are. And now that I sold my business, I'm going to get rid of the business the 1st of January.
hmm,
It's a nice young man who took it over, and I'm going to teach him and everything else. But once that's done, then I'm free in that part.
hmm,
And but we're looking at something that maybe because we think that they might sell this townhouse I'm in.
hmm,
So we're looking for a place to move to.
hmm,
So it's pretty bad when you've worked all your life. I haven't always been wise. Like a lot of people are wiser. They pay their mortgage off, and I never did that. I wasn't money concentrated.
hmm,
So we're looking for a place, let's say where we are now, Toronto, around the surrounding area,
hmm,
and houses go as an average $750,000.
hmm,
So my grandson, my granddaughter, they just started to work. They just come out of college. They haven't got their career job yet.
hmm,
So they're making very little money.
hmm,
For them to buy a house, even like a fixer-upper,
hmm,
is beyond means. So we're looking at buying a house outside, in the countryside where it's less expensive.
hmm,
I even looked at building my own house, but my wife says you're too old.
hmm,
So
hmm,
I'm probably going to forget that. But
hmm,
this is one thing. But we don't have most people don't have the capability of buying a house. But even if they do, they're in for slavery. They're in. Their family's going to suffer
hmm,
for the coming years to come,
hmm,
and there's going to be financial problems,
hmm,
and every family will be affected.
hmm,
Uh, so, how many people are affected by this?
hmm.
Just about everybody.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, nearly everyone. That's
Beautiful
right.
homes.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
the thing is that the homes are already built, but the money to buy them isn't available in the community. This is the thing about the price system, and this is why the teachings of C.H. Douglas, the Douglas social credit teachings, are so important because over 100 years ago, he identified that the community could never financially ever purchase what it produced. It could never financially purchase what it produced. There always had to be new credits, new loans coming into the system. And now it's got to the point where new loans, if we didn't have 250 million, that's trillions of dollars, if we didn't have 250 trillions of dollars in say like the American economy, or the world economy, whatever, if we didn't have these in the form of the debt, then our economies would be completely static. And yet the real world, the natural world, is that the machines are there, the technology is there, the industry is there, the energy is there, and yet the financial system says it's in the form of a debt that you can have it, whereas you should have it actually as a form of a credit. And that's why it's interesting, the Douglas teaching, because he finds equilibrium in the price system. He finds equilibrium where communities can actually redeem the debt and buy what they physically produced themselves. And I think that's most profound. That hasn't happened for hundreds of years, if not thousands of years. I know that a bloke called David Graeber, he spoke about 5,000 years of debt, and so this is nothing new. It's nothing new. The manipulation of the financial system for personal benefit. It's very shrewd, it's very cunning, and it's very subtle. And it's been going on forever. And this is why even if you like, the Chinese social credit, they deliberately pervert the words social credit in their surveillance system. They call it social credit because they don't want anyone to find out about the Douglas social credit. Because if they did and they understood it, they'd realise that hang on, this is the key. This is the key to unlock this debt. This is the key to place the financial system in equilibrium. So what we produce, we can actually buy, and therefore debt would become a thing of the past. And we don't have to work for the next 10 or 20 or 50 years to pay for a house that's already there. The house is already paid for by the fact that it's constructed in the natural world. It's already paid for. And it's a completely different way of thinking. Most important, we've got to turn the other way. We've got to turn around, go back the way we came, and have another look at this thing called Douglas social credit. Eve.
Yeah, it's archaic. The power of the government is not really in the government; it's behind the government.
Uh-huh.
Power resides there, and they have the power because they have the control of the money system.
Uh-huh.
McDonald's right now they have this game Monopoly.
Uh-huh.
I played it when I was a kid. I'm sure you did. Everybody did,
Uh-huh.
and never particularly liked it, but I played along, and so they're really pushing for this monopoly. Like people have to have the idea
Uh-huh.
that you have to monopolize
Uh-huh.
to make it in this world.
Uh-huh.
But like 100 years ago, almost 100 years, when C.H. Douglas went to the bankers in New York,
Uh-huh.
he gave them the idea. They already knew his idea.
I know.
He says, well, we appreciate what you're doing, but we're not going to give the people a dividend. So
No.
right there and then they started to shape the slavery in this world,
Uh-huh.
and there was no dividend was going to come out. Although people cried enough in the next few years, for example, in the 60s, 70s, people started to push the government
Uh-huh.
to give an allowance, a dividend.
Uh-huh.
But I guess they called it allowance. I remember it was getting $6 a month or something like that,
Uh-huh.
and then it went up to $10.
Uh-huh.
How pitiful that is!
Uh-huh.
And they had a hard time even doing that. They were shaking when the bankers are about that. They just shook. But it came out of the taxpayers' money, so there was no.
No dividend at all. No. No dividend at all. It's actually just really a dole or whatever, because if it comes out of taxes, it's what you're doing is confiscating an already shortage of money, and you're confiscating it from one group of people and giving it to another. And that's not what Douglas was about. It's certainly not about confiscation. He was opposed to all forms of taxation because it's what it is it's essentially um, it's a reduction of the existing individual spending power. It's a reduction. That's what tax is. It's a reduction of your spending power so that you can't actually even realize from the money that you've earned, you can't even realize the full potential of it. You've got to have it, if you like, coin clipped by the government. And of course, this goes back hundreds and hundreds of years, and it needs to be readdressed. Now, the Rougemont, the social doctrine of the church. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about, Eve?
Well, the social doctrine of the church is a very important part because, a lot of people complain about the Catholic Church. Maybe they're rich, they got all kinds of money, which they don't really. The elites own that particular uh, money.
Hmm.
The Vatican Bank they talk about, it's involved with New York and all that, but the elites are actually controlling that bank too.
I know.
So, but the social doctrine of the church mentions it for the last 100 years, 200 years, about this fraudulent financial system that we're under, the debt system.
Yeah,
And we have technology today, and apparently there was a man that went to the moon, so we should be able to fix the economy.
I agree.
Why
Yeah,
can they not fix the economy? Why can they not make people happier?
yeah,
Uh, C.H. Douglas gave them the solution,
hmm,
but they didn't want to hear nothing.
yeah.
No, we're going to indebt the world. This is what we're about. We're
That's
going
right.
to indebt the world.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
So
just
it's not as if it's impossible to change that. We can change the guy's mind. We can tell him, no, we're going to do it differently because you don't know how to run the world.
mm,
We gave you, the power to do it, but you can't do it.
no,
It's not sustainable.
no,
Your
no.
sustainable development.
Well, that's right. What it is it's actually an exploitation of the world and the resources in order to hold power over people. I mean, I look at the likes of what's going on in the Middle East with the military. And the fact is that if there's anything that is destructive of the environment, it is the military. It's the actual blowing up of things and blowing up of what's already there, blowing up of supposedly an enemy. Which one is the enemy? The one that's invading or the one that's defending? And it's the whole thing about media and brainwashing and all that. It really is inconsistent. Now, Eve, I just want to cut across to our library, and I just want to highlight to our viewers that in the library under encyclicals, we've got Rerum Novarum and Quadragesimo Anno, and those two encyclicals are there. But if you ever wanted to chase up other encyclicals, you've only got to go to the Vatican website, and all of the encyclicals for every single pope are there. And so you can actually spend days and days reading them. But those two particular encyclicals I think are most important because they're to do with the individuals in community and in society, to do with work, to do with leisure, and to do with economics and finance. And so I think they're actually responding to some quite significant issues that we see right in front of us. And the thing is that if you, as a young person, if you're out there complaining about the environment and the end of the world, just take into account that the people who are looking to take over the whole world are those same people who are actually causing the most environmental damage. It's the
Yes.
monopoly. It's the it's the exploitive industrialist, if you like. It's the exploitive capitalist who is doing the most destruction. And of course, if you go for if you like, the oligarch communist, it's exactly the same because what they're doing is exploiting the individual in order to turn them into an accessible slave or a usable slave for the empire. But they're oligarchs, and that means everyone else is a slave to them. Now that to me is the most environmentally destructive thing that can happen because the individual the individual is the most beautiful creature on the earth. The individual, the human being, is the most beautiful creature, and who has their own mind, their own spirit, and they have every entitlement to be free, every entitlement to receive sustenance from the world from which they come, the earth from which they come. They have every right to receive sustenance. And the fact that an individual, another individual, as a, if you like, a capitalist or a communist oligarch, whatever, can actually take the assets of the nation for their own pleasure. Take the assets. And that's what oligarchy is all about, whether it's steel or aluminium or water or it's forests or whatever, or finance. They take those assets of the nation for their own personal benefit. And if anything is environmentally destructive, in my view, that is the most destructive that's out there. Eve.
Yeah, when we look at the social doctrine of the church, what is a doctrine? A doctrine, it's like social credit doctrine.
Hmm.
It's a it's a system that can be adapted to men.
Hmm.
Men can use this system and say, "Hey, this is what we could do."
Hmm.
I don't know if you knew this, but the world doesn't know anything about social direct doctrine of the church. It's never mentioned anywhere. I had a priest that I went to in the little town of Lindsay, where I have a little cottage, and the pastor of the church. I went to visit with him. I wanted to talk to him about social credit and so on and so forth, because I wanted to pass a leaflet on abortion and euthanasia.
Yeah.
And in there was the social doctrine of the church. And he says, "Oh, I teach a social doctrine of the church. I teach it." Oh, really? Okay. So, but he didn't teach it. He taught some of it,
Mm.
but the social doctrine of the church has to be used as a whole, not a little portion like in the Bible. You
Hmm.
you want to take a little corner and you make your own deduction out of that.
Hmm.
So you have to use the whole social doctrine of the church to make it valid, to make it understandable.
Hmm.
And the whole social doctrine of the church has everything, encyclicals and so on and so forth, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
and and it has to be applied in society. But the each church doesn't really uh, teach. Okay, tonight we're going to teach the social doctrine of the church. This article here.
Hmm.
So tonight at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock, we're going to do. So those are interested, come on down, and
Hmm.
we'll have a meeting and we'll talk about the social doctrine of the church.
Hmm.
I've been meaning to want to do that, but again, I might get lazy at times, and I don't have the strength maybe or the courage
Hmm.
to go into it and really start to do it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I speak a lot, and I know that there's more work to be done. It
Hmm.
never ends.
Hmm.
So I think that would be a very important thing to even for Catholics. I mean, Catholics are ignorant. They're ignorant of the whole thing. They
Hmm.
accept it like the little bird. The mother brings a
Yeah.
whatever, and the little baby bird, and the bird eats whatever,
Yeah.
and that's that's. I feel that's the way we are.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's very important to have a, if you like, a personal relationship with God. And in that personal relationship, it's actually a, if you like, a commission to work through your own life and to understand it and pursue truth in your part of ship, in your circumstances. Pursue truth. And that truth should be reasonably consistent between you and I, but the fact is we may have different points of view on that. And we've got to both work that through. And if one happens to be right and the other wrong, well, perhaps they'll see that both will see it in the results. But it could be that both are wrong, or that both are right. They've just come at it from a different angle. And to me, that's the thing about this life, is it's so important for each person to work through their own life, their own challenges, their own thoughts and aspirations, their desires. I mean, Eve, when I was a young man, you mentioned earlier that you decided not to go after your own home. Well, for me, going after my own home was vitally important. And as a young man, I built my first house, and I had My wife was having the second child when we'd shifted in to the first house that I built, and that was lovely to do that. I ended up later on years. I ended up building another home, and I'm still on it. I'm still playing with it, tinkering around, and that goes on forever. But the fact is that to me, the creative opportunity that I had by building it is no different than that acknowledgement that God is part and parcel of the creation, and that is that He continues not only to make me into what I am, but He continues to the young are born, the elderly die, the plants are born, the plants die, the wind blows, the rain comes, the sun comes. This to me is all part of creation. It is God is creating all the time, and He is creator, and therefore it's just as much in us to want to be creative. And it's not just a one-off event that you just do it. Well, I'm going to do it just once, or it's over with. It's out of my system. Nothing of the sort. You talk to a gardener. Gardening goes on forever, every year, and a woodcarver. You don't stop just when you've done one wood carving. You keep going. People want to be creative, and to me, it's the very nature of who they are. Eve,
It all depends how much you want to sacrifice
yeah,
to get that. But I might still, you know what? I might still build my own house, but I
mm,
may not build it myself. There is companies that do modular homes, and
yep, hmm,
they have they have all kinds of ways of saving money, kind of thing. So
hmm,
I might look into that. I don't know, but
hmm,
right now the world is having problem with the economy. So I'm going to spend a few minutes or a few days, maybe,
hmm,
trying to help and to you know teaching other people to that there is a better system.
yeah,
Let's get it. Even if you don't work at it right now, you
hmm,
should know about it. You should know that we are being robbed blind,
hmm,
and the debt system is a thing that is archaic. It has to be changed. It has to be corrected
hmm,
because it's not sustainable.
hmm,
And I want these elites or bankers or international financiers, I want the world to know that they are fraudulent. They know about the social credit, they know about economic democracy, but they are not willing to let it go.
no,
And most people will accept that answer. Yeah, they're not. "Oh, what can we do? What can we do?" Well, like you said before, I'm only one. What can I do?
mm,
Do your little part,
that's
and
right.
the rest, God will take care of it.
That's right. I agree. I agree. That's beautifully put, Eve. We're at the 28-minute mark, and I've really enjoyed it. I must admit, though, it's quarter to 11 my time, and I go to bed about 9 o'clock at night, so I'm actually suffering a bit here. So I just
It won't
ask.
be that bad. It won't be that bad next at the end of the month because our time goes back. So we'll gain.
Okay.
So you'll be a little bit earlier, I
I,
guess.
I I got the impression that I looked it up today. I thought it went back at the end of September. I thought you were already back to normal
No,
time now. No?
no. The fall back is the end of October. It used to be a little bit earlier, but
Okay.
apparently I don't even exactly know. A couple of days before it's time, we usually get
Yeah.
messages or whatever, and
No worries. Yeah.
so we'll gain about an hour.
No
So we'll
worries.
be closer a little bit.
No worries. Too easy. All right, Yves, closing comments. The Rougemont, the social doctrine of the church, please.
Yep. There's all kinds of information regarding the social doctrine of the church, of course.
Hmm,
You can go to the Vatican website or you can go to our website,
hmm,
and our writings, whether it's Louis Evans, C.H. Douglas, is all based on the social doctrine of the church.
hmm,
So whatever you look at, there is always a cross encyclical or something that explains it
hmm,
in regards to the social doctrine of the church. So, if you get this information, you just have to go into it, and if you really want to help, at least learn about some of the things that the world doesn't know. Don't find that in the Financial Post or in the Globe and Mail and those
Hmm.
newspapers. You're
Hmm.
not going to find that in there. I
Hmm.
mean, they're going to hide that with a big cover, and nothing will be said.
Hmm.
Well, same thing with those three Nobel Prize winners.
Hmm.
They won a Nobel Prize for economy, trying to help the world, to, but there is a much better answer in
Hmm.
social credit,
That's
uh,
right.
which, which is economic democracy. But the encouragement is to study and educate yourself on the truth.
Hmm.
I think that's about the only thing I can leave as a message.
Yeah, no, that's a beautiful message, Eve. I know we're up here. I'm just gonna cut across to the website. Just stay with it. I'll just cut across to it. This is the Michael Journal here, the website, michaeljournal.org, and you'll find that there's a lot of articles. There's stories about, there's archives to go to, subscriptions, and including leaflets. I find the leaflets quite helpful, and gallery, just photos and things like that of the Pilgrims of St. Michael and the work that they do. I think it really, really is important. And if I was going to summarize my thoughts on tonight, Rougemont, the social doctrine of the church, the result, the place where the world is, which is on the abyss, it's on the edge of the abyss, and it's towards world government, which is a, if you like, world tyranny through finance. World tyranny, finance being the major tool being used against us. The only way away from the edge of the abyss is to turn around. And as the world is becoming more and more godless, the answer lies in turning back to God. Turning back to God. This is Arnis Luks and Yves Potvin at the Pilgrims of St. Michael Freedom Forum. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Eve.
Thank you. Have a
Uh,
good day.
you too.
Night.
No worries.